Welcome back to the CrossFit Bath Podcast. As always, I'm Jason Croxon. Joining me this week is Dan Tinkler. Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm not too bad, Jason. How are you?
I'm pretty good. It's nice to see you again. But before we get into that, I have a few tiny bits of housekeeping. First of all, I already apologized on Instagram, but I'm going to apologize on the podcast as well to Claire Wolfert because she was one of the people that sent in the warm-up question that I wrongly attributed to somebody else last week. So she called me out on it because she's a loyal
professional.
Well, I've called out other people on the podcast when they've made mistakes with people's names. The classic sample and episode comes to mind. So it's only fair that I admit when I'm wrong. It happens so rarely that I need to admit it when it happens, right?
What's that moral high ground like?
It feels great. And I'm also running out of warm-up questions. So if you're listening to this and you haven't filled out the listener spotlight form, you could do that and send in some warm-up questions. Or I'm these days putting out a shout on Instagram, generally before I record the episode, to ask for more warm-up questions. So if you're not following the Instagram, Jason CFB Podcast, you could do that. And then you can send me some warm-up questions fresh for the episode. For example, Dan, right now I have some warm-up questions that were sent in.
I love skipping warm-ups, so this is new to me.
Well, that's why I thought it was so important that we did it, helping you to learn, important skills that will transfer over into your life every day. So I put out a message on my stories on Instagram, just asking for warm-up questions. So I'll just share with you the first one. If you can answer it, I don't know, because the first one to the question of, please, can you send me some warm-up questions was, hey there, Jason, CFB Podcast. Please go like my last post when you can. And it's from someone called Pocky198. So,
send me that later. I'll make sure I go like it, and then we'll report back.
Thank you. So that was a good start. But here's a better question from Jess Goldsmith. She asks, and I feel like I already know the answer, do you prefer cats or dogs?
Well, at the moment, dogs, because he's probably outside wanting to get in. But cats growing up was terrified of dogs until I was about 11. Absolutely terrified. And now my life is dominated by one.
Like I say, you've got quite a big dog as well, haven't you?
He's not mine, he's my housemate's dog. But yeah, he's a staffy, he's big, he's strong, and has no concept of personal space, and yeah, he's great.
Yeah. So that's your flatmate. What about the dog?
If you want to go argue with him, I'll get him in there.
So what's the answer then? Cats or dogs? You're saying dogs just because the dog might be listening to you through the door.
He might be listening in, and he's bigger than me.
Fair
enough. Know the rules.
Excellent. Now, I've got another question for you, and I feel like you're maybe the right person for this question as well. So this is from Mockett. Jordan Mockett has asked. Oh, hold on, I've lost it. Now, just to preface this, the reason I think you might be the right person is I've seen some of your posts about like the lunches you prepare, and you're quite a connoisseur of the kitchen, I believe, Dan.
Lockdown kitchen's a thing.
So his question is cereal soup?
No, it's cereal. Why would it be soup? It's a dip. No, right? Because otherwise, if you're saying cereal is soup, you could chuck anything in a liquid and claim it's soup. That's not how it works.
So how does it work? What's the difference?
Well, one of them comes in a tin that says soup on it, doesn't it? Or you go through and you blend it all together to make a soup. And effectively you're blending the ingredients down, and then you can put other things in. Maybe we look at the line between soup and broth later on, probably something for someone who's a chef. But you can't say cereal soup. Like, who looks at that and goes, Weetabix soup? Weird.
I reckon Jordan might. That might be why he's asking the question. But
well, I'm not one to pull apart people's confidence, but Jordan, you're a little bit out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a liquid meal. Is that soup?
You say a protein shake's a soup?
Jordan, is a protein shake a soup? This is our next question. I don't know. There must be. I'm too lazy to Google the definition of what is a soup, but it's interesting. Food for thought, quite literally.
I mean, these weren't the types of questions I was expecting. If more warm-ups were like this, I would do them.
This is what most of my warm-ups are like. So
I've trained with you, I know this.
things have changed in Bath. I suppose I should just throw it, because we've got a really interesting topic that I want to get to, but I'm going to throw in my classic question for your first appearance on the podcast. So you may know what it's going to be, but it is, if they are making a movie of your life, Dan, who are you picking to play you?
Oh, God. Sean Bean.
Sean Bean.
Yeah, why? I want a great death scene.
Yeah, you are like really shortening your lifespan if it's going to be a biopic, then oh dear.
Yeah, but great death scene, isn't it? People remember it. Go
Yeah,
out with a bang.
quite. Yeah. Okay. It wouldn't be CrossFit related, because we know that it's not dangerous. We've got the statistics to back that up. But it's probably one of the other crazy things you're doing in life that is going to cause your untimely demise. But okay, Sean Bean. Do you know what? I mean, I wasn't expecting anyone in particular, but I was not expecting Sean Bean.
I'm not really sure why I said it, to be honest, but
Go
popped
with
into
your-
my head.
Go with your gut. Your first instinct's usually right. So I don't think that's true, but in this case, we'll take it. So Dan, in case anyone's not watching this and they're just listening, so they can't see you're wearing a beautiful CrossFit Bath t-shirt there, even though
2018 version.
Well, I was going to say the 2018 version. Now, there might be a reason for that. And if people are listening to this, who are like, I go to CrossFit Bath, I don't know who Dan is. So, Dan, maybe just before we get into our main topic, could you just sort of say what is your history with CrossFit in general? How did you start? And also with CrossFit Bath in particular?
Yeah, so I started at CrossFit Leicester back in early, when was it? 2017. Yeah, and my story in was basically I was the proverbial fatty who did nothing and then got too drunk one night, agreed to go to a boot camp, did that, decided to get fit, ran a marathon, and then was looking for something else to do. And I'd seen CrossFit, but was a bit put off by the image of it. And you'd see the absolutely ripped guys and girls on there, and you'd see things like the games and go, I can't do that. I just didn't have the guts to go, and I'd been looking at it, and a couple of friends had started doing it, and I ended up going with one of my colleagues at the time, one of the student officers I worked with, and went along for a trial class. Did it, couldn't walk for 2 days afterwards, couldn't move a barbell properly to save my life. I'd never really done any of that. I'd just been running and thought, I've just come off the back of running marathons. I'm pretty fit. Found out just how unfit I was when I walked in there and decided to sign up. So I spent 7 or 8 months training with CrossFit Leicester. Brilliant box. Taught me the basics very, very well. Very patient with me, which was needed. And yeah, still go back and see them now. Then I moved to Bath for work and joined CrossFit Bath. Ironically, when I moved to Bath, I was ready to run another marathon in Leicester. So I had a month where I didn't do CrossFit, but I was training for a marathon. And then came back to CrossFit something like 3 days after that. Started in the old place, and I've completely forgotten the name of that.
Wednesday.
That's it. Yeah, and then trained with CrossFit Bath for, oh God, how long did I live in Bath? Near enough 2 years, I think. Something like 1.5 to 2 years. And did a little stint with CrossFit Bournemouth in the middle, where I worked, I was there for a couple of months. Then was with CrossFit DHM up in Durham, which is just a fantastic, fantastic box. Loved my time there, where I came on so much over 6 months. And I now train with CrossFit York because I've moved to York. So yeah, I've been all over the country into lots of different boxes, lots of drop-ins as I travel for work. Not at the moment, but I often do.
Yeah, don't travel for work at the moment, please.
Now you get arrested.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you were in Bath for quite a while. I remember that, because another interesting thing about your training in CrossFit Bath, at what time would you usually train?
Or 8 p.m. I was in the 8 p.m. It was quiet there. And yeah, I think I went to, when I was in Leicester, I used to do like their 6:15 a.m. classes, but I had the advantage of it was a 5-minute walk from my house. So I would do it, and then when it was sort of 20 minutes from where I was living, and moved there and Wednesday. So I'm not going up to that. That's too far. And then when it moved down to the Twerton Park, it was 5-6 minutes walk from my house again. And I just went, nah, I can't get up for 7 a.m. That's not happening. So stuck to 8 p.m. Wonderful time.
It's
smaller group, friendly, fun.
Friendly fun, yes. Smaller group. I mean, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens when we're eventually let out again. But it was started not being that smaller group towards the end. It's almost as if somebody kept saying how good the 8 p.m. class was,
Or
and then people
people
started going.
heard I'd left and turned up. Who knows? Oh, he's not there. We'll go now.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait till you move back to Bath to see if that's the case. Otherwise, it's just because we've been telling people how great the class is. So that's sort of your history with CrossFit in general. Now, the reason that we got you on today is not because we used to train together, so that was convenient, and I haven't spoken to you in a while, so what a good excuse to have a chat. That's not the reason. But you actually mentioned...
I'll see you later. I'm done.
But you actually mentioned something interesting to me that I thought would be a very interesting topic for others as well. And that was with regards to dyspraxia.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose the very first question, in case anyone is going, what did he just say? What is dyspraxia?
So effectively, it's what used to be known as clumsy child syndrome, which is just a horrendous way to look at it. But it's a learning difficulty which is motor neuron related, and it also affects process of thought as well, which is why I can never string a sentence together in a coherent order to save my life. But a lot of it will come down to aspects of coordination. It will affect people differently. So effectively, what you think of is the clumsy people who take a lot longer to learn something, the ones who will trip over their own feet, which actually played quite a bit of an impact for me. So I didn't get diagnosed with dyspraxia, and I've also got dysgraphia, which basically means that I can't really write to save my life, can't structure, that is the extent of what scribble looks like. And that's my neatest writing. And it takes me a while to do that, but I got diagnosed.
Could I say, was that your neatest? Are they your notes for the podcast?
No, some of them were work notes as well underneath there.
I was feeling really like, oh wow, he's done his neatest writing just for me. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, but only I can read it. Yeah, I got diagnosed when I was 20, I think, when I was a student. And basically, I was just not scoring very highly on essays and exams. I could never finish. And one of my lecturers, a wonderful guy called Norman Housley, who was just everybody's favourite lecturer in history at Leicester, and he just sat me down and said, look, go get a test, it'll be covered for, the university pay for it, you need to do this. And first I was like, well, why? Took it as a bit of an offence of, you're saying I've got this disability and this and this, and in the end my pride gave way and went and did it and came back. So where often affects me, things like close motor control, or seeing pattern, or putting things together and seeing patterns. I just can't do that. Like, the test for there was effectively 9 dice for that, and you would put them in an order and then you had to rearrange it back in that order quickly. And I thought I was getting it perfect. I couldn't line anything up to save my life, apparently. Like, things like I still can't colour in between the lines. I don't understand how anybody can do that, let alone make it. But those sorts of areas of how it's affected me, and it was one of the things that did play with me of looking to start CrossFit, was, will I be able to do this? So I did quite a bit of research online and was looking around and effectively Googling things like CrossFit with dyspraxia, CrossFit with a learning difficulty, training with this, exercise with this, and there just wasn't much out there. There was one post from somebody who was a strength and conditioning coach about having worked with a couple of clients who had dyspraxia and how it was a learning curve for them, but not really anything else. So there was a Reddit thread of Tumblr or one of them sort of things going, I've got this, should I do it? And it did make me question longer and longer, going, will I actually be able to do this? Or will I be able to pick things up? And particularly in a group environment, is that pressure of where everybody else is getting this, I'm going to take longer to learn this. Like for me, for example, if I have to do 2 movements at once, I can't grasp that. So that's why things like I'll struggle with the idea of Olympic lifting and gone, right, so you've got to take the bar up to get tall to get small. I have to jump down underneath the bar. No, my brain can't compute that.
Suddenly, I think a lot of people listening to this are going, maybe I've got dyspraxia.
Who knows?
I also struggle with Olympic lifting. It's hard to get tall and get small.
Yeah, but effectively, sort of things where you go, doing that, I'm having to think quite hard about that. I don't have it in a severe sense. It doesn't affect me massively in day-to-day life, but enough, and a lot of it also comes down to thought process. So, also affects short-term memory. So when you're being taught a movement, I'll forget it within a minute. It's not that I'm not paying attention. I just go, oh no, something else has happened. What's going on there? Like, wait, go back and you dumb it down, go again, take it slow, step by step. I need to see things sort of broken down point by point by point. And it did make a thing. I spoke to the coach, Andy, at CrossFit Leicester when I started, one of the corners there, and just said, look, I really, really struggle with this. You're going to have to go quite slow with me at the start. You're going to have to break it down a lot more than you would. I'm probably not going to get it, and just got really, really supportive back. I think if I hadn't had that start, I probably wouldn't have stuck with it, and having been doing CrossFit for, 3 years now, more than 3 years. Didn't realise it was that long. Apparently we're in 2020, Jason. Who knew?
I mean, does it matter at this point? It's what's a day, what's a week, what's a month, what's a year? It's just to know.
Sun goes up, sun goes down. We stay inside.
Exactly.
Will we ever be allowed out? Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? I thought, it's finally an episode we're not just going to talk about being locked in. It seems it's unavoidable.
That was your fault, not mine. You brought it up.
You're right. I did. It's almost like it's on my mind. So I suppose I'm just intrigued then if you couldn't really find, it's quite, it would be nice to think, I mean, you've been doing it for 3 years now, so maybe there are articles published and things put out there that weren't, but if not, at least maybe this podcast will be something that someone could find, which would be nice. But what was it then that made you think, okay, I can at least give it a go? If you it sounds like there were a lot of red flags or kind of potential. It's very easy to say, well, I'm not 100% sure. And I think especially as CrossFit already had that reputation that we've discussed multiple times on past episodes about, it's dangerous and people get injured and you're going to hurt yourself. I think if I knew that, well, if healthy people, you've mentioned like the games and things like that and how you would discourage that. So I think if these guys are hurting themselves,
yeah,
what's going to happen to, and I'm going to kill myself if I'm, clumsier than they are, kind of thing. So how did you get over that?
I think partly is the fact that I looked at it as a challenge to myself, and I want to go, well, no, I can do this. Like, I'm not someone who's ever gone, oh, well, I speak about myself, and technically, dyspraxia is down. It's a disability. It's protected by the Equalities Act 2010, etc. But I'm not ever looking, goes, well, I've got a disability in this. That's my own pig-headed way. Like, I have, but I don't think about it like that. But I think it was, I'd seen friends who were doing it and gone, look, they're having fun. I want to have fun. Like, I want to get fitter again. I need to find another challenge. I'd come off the back of doing my first marathon and went, okay, what now? I finished it, and effectively I spent a month eating absolute junk again and just like not really living the life that I was supposed to live. And I didn't want to go back to that bandwagon of being the big fat fatty and the drunkard. So I needed something, and that looked good. And then that aspect of the challenge and going, well, yeah, okay, maybe I'm not going to get this as quick, but I'd rather say I gave it a go than I didn't. And there was all the social side that came with it. Like, I would never have been the type of person who'd have just walked into a commercial gym, for example, and felt confident and had a clue what I was doing. Like I say, I'd never picked a barbell up till I started. Well, actually, no, I think I'd had about 10 years where I hadn't picked a barbell up, should I say, from sort of doing stuff as a teenager in the gym at school, which doesn't count because you don't have a clue what you're doing in the slightest, and you're just going, look at me, lads, which arguably happens in some of the commercial gyms, but...
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, I suppose that's an interesting way to look at it, isn't it? That instead of just... It depends how you look at doing exercise, doing CrossFit in particular? Are you just going, because I suppose if it's just saying, well, I just need something, to get fit, maybe, going to a commercial gym, just using the machines where I can't possibly drop them on myself or hurt me, like, okay, that'll be the safe option. And that's probably going to be the easiest thing. But looking at it as, I want to have fun. I want to actually enjoy it. And if I'm getting fit, that is, not a byproduct, but I'm not just going there to get fit, but it's the journey as well as the destination kind of thing. And focusing on that, and as you said, like the social aspect and all the other elements. So if somebody is a bit sort of on the fence of, well, is this the best fitness regime for me? I guess it depends what you want. If you do want to have a good time, and it's always different, and as you said, it's kind of a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge for everyone. It's just a challenge for you in a different way than it is for somebody else.
The thing of, effectively, it's a hidden disability, isn't it? It's the, if you go in and you are a wheelchair user, or you are visually impaired, and those things which are just obvious to spot, well, good coaches are going to go through that with you. They're going to be able to make adaptations. They're going to change their style. They're going to do what's needed to be done. Yeah, if someone who walks in, like me, dyspraxia, or someone with dyslexia, you're probably not going to spot it unless they tell you. And obviously, as with any disability, like, it's your right to declare that. Nobody has to, well, you must tell us if you can't ask that question. You can put it in there, and it's up to someone if they want to declare that, and then put measures in place with them. And I say, if I hadn't had such a good start at Leicester with Andy and the support there, then I wouldn't have kept going. Like, I probably wouldn't have, I'd probably dropped out 2-3 months in. But actually, having that made the difference. I think there's a lot of that. If you're eyeing it up and you're thinking, do you know what, I fancy giving this a go, tell it, whoever you walk into, speak to them or contact them beforehand, have that chat and say, I'm concerned about this, or I have this, what can you do for adaptations to help me? How are you going to do that? And if you're a good box, they're going to be able to say, well, actually, this is what we can do, or we're not 100% too sure, but we will work with you to find what works for you. Rather than sort of going, no, this is what we do, this is our regular, how we'd scale it anyway. Rather than just getting that sort of generic, well, everything can be scaled sort of thing, which is great and it should be able to, but actually go through how it's going to be able to be done.
Yeah, and I suppose with regards to scaling, like you're quite often you'll have to scale something because of a limitation, right? So like with Shax, we talked about, overhead squats, for example. If you're limited in that range of motion, you can't really support the bar overhead and in the bottom of a squat. You do need to scale that. You should probably do a front squat, or at least do it with just an empty bar or something, because your body physically can't support that position with that weight in that position. Whereas, as you're saying with something like dyspraxia, you might, it's easy to say, well, look, if you can't do this, you should scale it. These are the scaling options. But actually, you might be able to do it. It might not be that it needs to be scaled in the same way. It just needs, as you said, to be broken down. Instead of this movement, we explain it in 3 parts. Well, this time we're going to explain you this movement, in 5 or 6 parts. Master part 1 and 2 first, then master the next bit, and then the next bit. You can do this. You just need a little bit more help, because actually, your body can do it. It's just trying to work out how to do it.
Yeah,
so I think that piece of advice you're saying about, if somebody does have, again, we'll say a disability that is unseen.
Yes, learning difficulty.
Yeah. Yes, it's your right, whether or not you want to disclose that. But I can imagine it can be quite frustrating, can't it? If you just keep getting it wrong, because, or you feel like, oh, well, I'm not getting enough coaching, or they're not telling me, I can't understand what they're trying to say. Well, if you're, whereas if maybe just saying, look, this is the issue I have, can you help me? And as you said, generally a coach should be able to, I'm sure everyone at CrossFit Bath would be able to do that.
Well, yeah, like I tell people from the start, and I get not everybody's going to be as it's fine, like, and I will let people rip it out of me, going, "Oh, look at him," and I'll rip it out of myself as well. But it depends on the level of individual with that, their confidence in doing it and their personality. Once you're comfortable around people, you can go, "Oh yeah, it's fine." Like, it is done. Like, going back to that overhead squat, mobility wise, it does affect me across my mobility. Like, yeah, that's partly my own fault because I don't work on it enough as well, like everybody else. But you ask me to get down into a snatch, there's a good chance I'm probably going to fall over at some point. And I'm like, "Oh, here we go again." Get up, laugh, it's funny. But what I've found is, the confidence has improved as a result of CrossFit. Like, I've able to get my body to do things that I just went, from when I first looked at it years ago, I went, "Well, I'll never be able to do that, but I'll give it a go." And go, "Oh wait, no, I can do that. That's great." Like, and the sense of achievement, I think, for me, it almost feels stronger because you're going, "Well, yeah, I couldn't move an empty barbell correctly when I started. I didn't have a clue what I was doing." The idea of, let's take for example, if I'm doing a power clean, well, the bar would be out here when I started because I just couldn't grasp that, keeping it close or being able to get you back into a position through a deadlift. I would think where I was going is perfect. Boom, right, well, you need to hold your head here. Well, that's a problem because my head kind of moves in the direction it feels like doing it, and I need to be able to focus on something. Or if I'm doing, I can still barely double under to save my life. They kind of go double, single, double. But from someone who, when he started, couldn't skip in this, just couldn't do it, I would lose it. No coordination there. I thought, I'm now able to do that. It's great, but I have to know that the way I've had to work on that is head straight, focused. There's a point. Do not take anything off that. That's it. As soon as I move my head ever so slightly, everything else will completely and utterly follow. And that's it. And then I'll just end up swearing at the rope quite a lot. So I've gone, well, this is what I've had to adapt. And, it is adapting to work and build in there. And it took me 3 years to learn how to do a handstand. I was delighted when I did it because I just couldn't get my body in. I was like, there was nothing wrong with the strength there, but I just couldn't get my body in the correct position, and everybody taking me through it. And I thought, well, it doesn't work. No, boom, well, I can't get the angle to kick off correctly. But then I have 3 years. Yeah, it's slow progress, but it's still progress.
And I think, do you think then that going actually into a CrossFit box and seeing everybody else helps with that? Because a lot of the things you're saying, and you're saying it with even this kind of a legitimate reason as to why it's a struggle, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not the only person that when he does a snatch falls over or is struggling to do double unders, doing single double after a long period of time. And I think again it goes to that kind of, if you just Google CrossFit or you just look at the Instagram posts of the top athletes that are incredible, yes, you're going to think, well, I can't do that. I'll look at them hitting it every time perfectly, no problems. But if you actually go in and you spend time with people there and you see, well, this person's been there longer than me, and they're still struggling with this movement as well, and this one, you'll see that we've all got different issues that we have to overcome.
Oh, completely.
And so nobody, well, no, not nobody, there are a few that come in and they just master everything straight away.
Yeah, we all hate them though,
exactly.
don't we?
So apart from those ones, it is a challenge for everyone. And I think you kind of, it goes back to that whole thing of you all suffer together. Like you all suffer together through a workout. We often talk about that, don't we? That, it's a 20-minute AMRAP and you've all done the same thing. Maybe you've scaled weights slightly differently or movements slightly differently, but at the end of the day, you've all had the same kind of pain basically to get through this workout. But I think we all suffer together as well, in that we all want to learn. So, there's somebody there who is trying to get that first pull up, and there's somebody else who is trying to get that first muscle up, and they're different movements. And obviously, the one who's trying to get that muscle up, he can probably knock out a lot of pull-ups quite easily. But at the end of the day, once he gets that muscle up, well, now you're looking at linking muscle ups.
Yeah.
Or now you're looking at doing a very strict muscle up, something like that. We all have that movement that we're trying to learn, and we all have that movement that it seems we cannot learn. And we have those movements that we thought we could never learn, but we did. And I think I think it's nice that you can, once you are in and you talk to people and you learn about their kind of before and where they are now, you get that. But I can understand the apprehension someone would have before going if they assume that everybody there is perfect.
Yeah, I
and
think
they're not going to be.
Yeah, before CrossFit took their little strop and took their account off Instagram before putting it back on, and they were doing all those sort of older people lifting jerry cans sort of thing, or lifting water bottles on there, and there were some people who went out and they were, we're going to take the mick out of this. Actually, no, you shouldn't. Like, maybe the way it was presented was a little bit daft, but actually the ethos of what it was about was right. But you look at it and go, this is great because it's now addressing one issue here, effectively, ageism approach. But actually, what about that aspect of ableism that comes in? And that it obviously is much harder to present because you've got a spectrum across there. And, it's not just a case of whatever it is of you either are this or this. It's a point on. Like, my dyspraxia is nowhere near as severe as lots of people's is. It affects me, but I've learned how to work with it. There's certain things like I know I can't string a sentence together to save my life. I'm awful at it, which is great that you got me on a talking
I was going to say, and yet you're on a podcast, so maybe that's not
good
true.
luck for you editing this. And it's going to be a lot of chopping and changing.
So
But actually, what could be put out there, and for coaches as well, it's probably not something that you've considered. You'll consider it going, well, how do I coach people with a disability if it's come in? Like I've trained with some fantastic training with a blind athlete up in DHM, and Brad, who was brilliant, who's coach's son, but didn't matter, went in there same as anybody else, and the adaptations were fantastic. And there's guidance out there for that, but there's very little guidance around how do you train people with learning difficulties. So actually, what should there be more? Well, yes, for a start. And actually, if coaches are more confident and then they're able to change sort of their PR that goes out on the back of this, or are able to show this is how we can support you, I think that's where you become much more an inclusive community.
I imagine it's probably one of those things that you'll have certain so we're talking about it from your point of view of going into these different boxes, and you're saying this box was amazing, they really helped me out with that. So you're going to have certain coaches that have had the experience of doing it, and so the next time in the future someone comes into their box and says, look, I just want you to know that I've got this issue, and don't worry about it, we know exactly what to do with you. Like we've been through this before, we've got these options for you. Maybe even just that concept of understanding, okay, right, you've got this, where would you put yourself on this kind of line? How severe is it? How much help do you need from us? What are you worried about? Are you worried about doing a box jump or something like that because you think you're going to smash your shins on the box? Are you worried about, you said, like using the barbell because you're going to have to link consecutive little movements together to create a full movement? And so I think you'll have around the world probably a number of coaches that really know how to handle this.
Yes.
But until somebody walks into your gym with this issue, or any issue that someone might have, even you've got coaches that have coached probably a number of blind people, and you've got coaches that have never coached a blind person. And even if they hear in theory, these are the steps that you can do, until you do it,
yes,
you're never really gonna, you can have it in theory, but until you see it in practice,
I think
it's going to be different, isn't it?
No point in us saying, right, I expect perfection when you come in. Nobody would, but actually, guidance is a start. And actually having that there and going, and what's the science behind it as well? Like, dyspraxia does affect muscle growth, it does affect coordination in that science. And I can only talk about this because this is my experience. I can't say what it is like for somebody else with a different disability, learning difficulty, etc. But actually, if that aspect is there of going, well, this is how you need to work with them, it's about putting steps in place. And effectively what you're saying is, to achieve that almost level of equality, is that sometimes you have to, that sort of, you may have seen that image of the kids of different height on different size boxes looking over the fence.
Right, yeah.
effectively the smallest one needs to be on the highest box to be able to see. If you give them all an equal size platform, well, one's still going to be much taller than the other.
Yeah.
It's about being able to put those little bit extra in place. And I think it's not in the sense of nobody wants to see this, but actually it's just not something that's at the front of an agenda.
Yeah.
Because it's hidden.
Yeah.
Unless someone says to you, well, actually, I've got, you're not going to be able to guess it.
Yeah, and I think even the kind of...
And lots of people don't know as well. Like, I'm in the fortunate position where if I hadn't been at university and someone hadn't spoken, a lecturer hadn't spoken to me, I wouldn't have known.
No, yeah.
I'd just gone, I'm a bit slow at this.
It's interesting, isn't it, how certain things work out. and yeah, that because you probably have done exactly the same things. It just would have been... and I assume you probably have even had similar help within the box, because they would, anybody who's struggling with a lift, they're going to get a little bit of extra help, aren't they? But knowing why can just give someone that that patience, maybe, that they because they understand that it's not somebody who just you're not listening, you're not paying attention. Why can't you get? I've shown you this 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times, but they understand. All right, this is why I'm having to show it to you again, and that can help them to be more patient, maybe.
Yeah.
Because nobody's perfect, and we will reach that point where we go, come on, how many more times do I need to
this by now?
tell you this?
I'm trying my hardest.
But I think as well the fact that it's not just that it's unseen. It's when you think of the health issues and the problems that particularly something like CrossFit is trying to deal with, it's sort of the health issues that are changeable but are also chronic and will lead to real huge problems down the line, isn't it? So you've got chronic obesity and things like that, and then type 2 diabetes and things that actually lifestyle can change, not just help you improve in this, but really potentially save your life.
Yes.
Because you make these changes. So it's understandable why there's such a push behind that, and that's commendable and good, and you'd never want that to stop. But at the same time, as you're saying, there are other people that maybe would love to do something like this, but they perhaps just didn't have the friends that were doing it like you did, that gave them the push to say, oh, let me try. They maybe just look at it as, this is something with too many moving parts, and I just don't want to be under a barbell when I drop it. Like that's
I think CrossFit has done a lot to challenge its intimidating atmosphere in the past few years. And, going back to those, you're getting off the couch, oh, look at me, I can stand up from this now, isn't it great? Actually, that's fantastic. Perhaps it was not presented the best way, but the ethos of what it was trying to say was brilliant. Going, look, this is for everybody, and it's really worked. Get me wrong, love watching games athletes going, wow, how did they do that? But it's that perception of, actually, I don't need to be able to do that. Like, I've been in the fortunate position where, I say fortunate, I've watched Lionel Messi play football in person. He destroyed us that night, and it was amazing. But I step onto a football pitch, I don't expect to be as good as a professional footballer. But yet somehow, I'm not going to be able to do that. I know that. It doesn't put me off playing it. I'm still going to have some fun. But actually, something about when you see that image of CrossFit, when it's there, there's the expectation of, these are the fittest humans on earth, so to do this, you must be fit. Well, no, you'll get fit while doing it.
Yeah.
Nobody expects you to be able to do any of that at the start.
Yeah,
but I think it's almost that perception that comes with.
It's that kind of common trope or common sort of thing you hear about. I felt I needed to get fit in order to do CrossFit. And it's like, well, no, you need to start CrossFit in order to get fit. It's not the other way around. Like if you're doing something that's getting you fit, maybe just keep doing that then at this point. But if you want to get fit, come and do CrossFit.
If you want to be in that, if you want to dedicate your life to this cult, off you go, have great fun, come in, you'll like it. But I think it's that sort of the perception needs to work alongside, and if it's putting in there, and perhaps is more articles of saying, people going, well, actually, this is how it's helped me in day-to-day life regarding this learning difficulty, then actually that makes a big difference. And perhaps the places that would publish them, well, people might pick up on it through Google, but even if not, it starts to get the community thinking differently. And I like reading more about, if you like, your average Joe CrossFitter than reading this is what a games athlete's diet is. Great, but I'm not going to be that level of committed, and I don't care about being that level of committed. I don't want to be that good. It would be nice, but I'm not going to work my life to that.
Yeah.
Whereas seeing those articles from people who can say, well, actually, as a result of this, it effectively saved my life, or that it built my confidence, I was able to do X, Y, or Z. I think there's more value in that as the image going out there.
Yeah, and I think it is, and I think again, it's out there if you know where to look, and it's quite hard to find sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I did a podcast, not a CrossFit podcast, so a different podcast, and was speaking to somebody with, ironically, the same initial CF, but cystic fibrosis, and
Yeah.
so we were talking about that, and because I do CrossFit, I actually found when I was in my research on cystic fibrosis, somebody who had cystic fibrosis that did CrossFit, and is having to be kind of on an oxygen tank while they're doing their burpees because of the difficulty it gives you in breathing and the fluid in the lungs and all of that.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting because it's somebody who is and really good at CrossFit as well. Not I just go and kind of do not that sitting up off the couch, but really lifting, doing all the move, doing everything that you would expect someone who is quite an elite level athlete to be doing, but with this huge challenge ahead of them. And it's it's fascinating to sort of see what their routine was and how they were doing it. But that's because I was specifically researching this issue, and I came across it. And otherwise, I don't know if I would have ever found it any other way. So I think again, things are out there, but it's difficult to find them. What I am interested in that you mentioned just a moment ago is how then it transfers over to daily life. So have you found that doing CrossFit, apart from general health and you said before, I thought I was fit, and then I started CrossFit and I realized I wasn't fit, and maybe now you feel less so in that in that not feeling fit.
I mean, it gave my confidence a battering, but it built it back up.
Yeah. But has there been any crossover into into just general life where you thought, what, because I do CrossFit, this is easier, or this has helped, or anything like that?
I think a lot of it is, the simple aspects of coordination. Like, I'm not sort of thinking, oh, well, I might make a bit of a fool of myself here. I'll give it a go. I'll probably still make a fool of myself, but I'm less bothered by it because it doesn't bother me anymore. Like, I've fallen off enough pull-up bars, etc., to know that it's fine. I'll bounce off the floor and get back up. I've gone, well, there's a lot of blood on my hands here. I'll deal with this later. Sorry, Sharks, I'll clean that later. But I think the biggest aspect is the confidence. And that I go, well, actually, the stuff that I thought I'd never be able to do, I can do. So why can't I try that with other things? Why can't I take that element of risk? And I think that is where it crosses over into that aspect of day-to-day life a lot more. Like, I'm not in a position where my learning difficulty is severe in any way, shape, or form. It affects me. Like, for example, if someone says, go do an exam, I need extra time for it because I'm just never going to be able to write quick enough. I can't compute my brain fast enough. But I think, well, in that aspect of going, well, it's given me the confidence to overcome challenges, like mentioning it beforehand. Simple things like going, oh yeah, first time I was able to do a set of pull-ups without a band. Well, actually, if I was able to do that and then progress through and get into that muscle up progression and then linking them, granted, not very well, but still linking them, 3 and I'll fall off. But thinking, well, I've got the confidence to do that and can see it and go, well, actually, whatever I'm doing here is confidence, and it's step by step again. And having the good coaching has made a difference to that. So yeah, I think that's where it comes in, that aspect of day-to-day life a lot more. Like, it's, I'm not in the sense of where I'd go, oh, well, I'm not going to go out for a run because I'm not coordinated or anything along those lines. Like, I could do that beforehand, but it's given me the confidence to try things a lot more. Like, It sounds daft. I went badminton with work. I'm starting a new job in January, and I went, whereas I probably wouldn't have gone before, because I know I'm not very good at it, racket sports, and I can't coordinate well enough. Like, oh god, missed the thing again. Like, but so I went, it's fine, I'll go. And then from that, you chat to people more, you end up making more friends, and that aspect. So that's where it's really, really given me that confidence boost for day-to-day life. Of go and put yourself out there a little bit more.
That is interesting, because I feel like personally with CrossFit, when you talk of like overcoming a challenge or challenging yourself and doing it, with a lot of things, it's kind of one and done, isn't it? You sort of,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to try and do this thing. Oh, I've done it. Whereas with CrossFit, it's sort of as soon as you overcome a challenge, and it's not even one at a time. You might have 5 or 6 different challenges you're facing at the same time. You're sort of like, this is my challenge, and once you overcome it, well, there's the next challenge just around the corner. So like we said, oh, my challenge is, can I do pull-ups? No, I can't. All right, I'm going to work at them. Oh, I can do pull-ups. This is great. Can't do muscle-ups.
Get your chest to the bar.
Get
Off
your
you
chest
go.
to the bar, yeah. Brilliant. Or, you've mentioned like getting into a handstand. So it's like, can I get into a handstand? No, I can't kick up into a handstand. I'm doing wall walks or something else.
Yeah.
Now I can kick up into a handstand. Great.
Yeah.
Can
Less
you do
wall walks, even better.
Yeah. This is the one time when I think it pays not to scale is whenever there's handstand push-ups, and it means no wall walks. I'm like, oh, happy to go RX on this one, guys.
Is harder.
Don't tell them. Don't let them know. But yeah, I just think it's that you are constantly overcoming challenges in CrossFit, as opposed to other things where it is the challenge in itself. Mm-hmm. You overcome it. It's done.
Yeah. Effectively, you then get to well, I've done it, but now can I do it quicker? Well, yeah. It's still the same thing.
Yeah, and I suppose that sort of lift that gives you in daily life of, well, I overcame this challenge. After a while, it starts to fade, doesn't it? It's sort of like, oh, I overcame this challenge, but that was a few years ago now, and I haven't really done anything new since. Whereas I feel with CrossFit, you are just constantly overcoming challenges. So then, as you said, in day-to-day life, do you want to go and play badminton? Another challenge. Yeah, why not? I overcame that one. I can overcome this one. And you just kind of are constantly rolling through being out of your comfort zone and having to do something new. And it kind of just plays into, and I think that again is across the board for everybody that does CrossFit. But I imagine some need it more than others, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're going to have some people that are naturally quite happy to give it a go, and you're going to have some people that giving it a go is not a good idea. I don't like that. So having that boost of saying, well, hold on, I've done it in the past and it turned out good. Let me try it again, sort of thing. What would you say to someone then if they were, and if you're listening to this because you have dyspraxia and you are contemplating, well done for listening this far through. I really appreciate that.
You put up with a pair of us. Sorry.
That is commendable. So CrossFit has nothing that should scare you at this point. What would you say to someone, or maybe perhaps we are doing CrossFit ourselves and we have a friend or a relative or someone we know that we might like to encourage, and maybe it's not dyspraxia, but it might be another learning difficulty or
any aspect
problem.
of learning difficulty, a disability is, it will limit you. There is no way of saying that, honestly, but actually what you can put in place to work to overcome that or limit the amount that it limits you. So for me, it will always come down to, if you think, where I'd quite like to give this a go, or I'm not too sure, then make contact with people. They should be accommodating of you. They should be saying, yeah, this is what we can do, or come in for a chat or whatever, and we'll work on a plan with you. And effectively, like if you go into a workplace and someone is affected by a disability and they've declared it, then you have to make reasonable adjustments. It is the law. Well, it should be the same in any scenario, that if you declare that, then it's the organisation's responsibility to make reasonable adjustments for you. Whether you're going in there as a member, should be treated as the same as if you're going in as an employee. I'm not 100% sure on what the law is at that point as well. Actually, if you're going in there, I'm okay on the Equality Act, but I'm not that good on it. But actually have that chat with, if it's CrossFit, have that chat with the box owner, have it with the coaches. Let them have it with their coaches. And they should be making those adaptations for you. And if there's other people in there, talk to them. Like if you're not grasping something, ask someone who's a bit more experienced to take you through it. I mean, you should do that anyway, but perhaps it'll come in if you're not, if you're struggling with a movement. And I know I say it lots of the time, and you might have spotted this when we've trained together as well. But hang on a minute, take that down. I didn't get a thing there. Dumb it down a bit, step by step. That for me is effectively going, I can't understand what you're saying here. You're going to have to give it completely and utterly different because my learning difficulty has limited me here. I just phrase it a different way. And I phrase it in a way where, I'm like, well, I'll just make myself look a bit daft here. That's fine. But actually what I'm saying is, I need help.
Yeah.
Actually find the way that you're able to say that and make sure it's known why. Like I've told people, but not perhaps at every point gone, look, the reason I can't get this is, and maybe I should have done this earlier on. And when I started doing it more and was more confident with coaches across the board, then actually what I got was better coaching back. So they've got to be able to know that you're in that scenario. And the coach has got to be confident enough to deal with it themselves.
Yeah, I suppose it's unfair also on the other side, isn't it, to sort of think, well, this coach is no good, he's not helping me if he doesn't have all the information. So
yeah, they've got to know. You've got to be able to say, well, actually, this is how. And sometimes it gets frustrating if you're going to repeat that to 4 or 5 different coaches each time, but ultimately it's there to help you.
And I think, again, that's where, you look at CrossFit, and I mean, we've mentioned it many times on the podcast that, if I have to sell CrossFit to someone, I'm always going for the coaching first. Like, the reason you pay for CrossFit is the coaching and the workouts. Like, the fact that you don't have to plan anything. You go in, you're told what to do. You're coached through a warm up, the workout, a cool down, a stretch. If at any moment you're doing something wrong, you're not really doing a lift the right way, you're risking injury or something like that, you're going to get stopped. They're going to help you out. They're going to tell you what you're doing wrong. If you're doing something right, but you could be doing it better, you're going to get some cues, some tips. This will help you. This is going to, and that's for everyone. And whereas I think if you go to a kind of more standard gym, maybe you'll have someone who'll do an induction with you. They'll talk you through,
this
the
is how
first
this
time.
machine works. Do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, after you're going there for 2-3 months, they'll just see you as a regular, and they won't pay that much attention to you because you're a regular, so you know what you're doing. Whereas if you want constant help and feedback every single time you go in for a workout, probably CrossFit is actually better for you. Yes, there may be a steeper learning curve at the beginning, but you're going to be helped up that learning curve. Whereas something else, yes, these are simple machines. You just go in, they're pretty easy. But if you do need any help, you're probably not going to find it. And it's probably going to be more difficult to have to go and actually ask for help from someone who's, not usually kind of used to giving help, as opposed to the coaches at a CrossFit box that are always ready to give feedback to everyone. If it's your first time there, if you've been going there for years, it doesn't matter, does it? There's always something you can improve. So I'm told constantly.
Yeah, me too.
So Dan, I think it's been a really interesting chat. I hope that people listening have found it interesting. And if they haven't,
me too.
well,
I mean, just getting listeners would be nice, not putting everybody off with my name. Get in.
Sorry, I'll hide your name in the title somehow.
Oh, go for it.
Move it around. No, I think people will be happy to hear from you. Happy to know you're still alive. We've seen you drop the barbell so many times. We weren't sure. We've seen you fall off the pull-up rig so many times. We could never be sure.
Oh God, there was a one where we did pyramid version of hell, and I remember that. That was a bad night. And just blood pouring out my hands all over the bar, all over the rig. And just remember leaving and shouting at others, being like, right, no one go on that bit of the rig. It's got my blood all over it.
Yeah. I mean, if they ever need to clone you, it's going to be pretty easy, right? I mean, you've left enough of your DNA around numerous CrossFit bugs. Maybe they'll be able to clone you as like the perfect CrossFit athlete.
It's the only way it's going to happen.
So, Dan, do you have time for a listener spotlight? I'd like to get your opinion on some of the answers to these questions. So,
I'm not really a very opinionated person, Jason. So, wait,
no,
I am.
God, I got confused. Suddenly I thought I'd got the wrong guest on. So after that long
I'm diplomatic
discussion,
now.
You're diplomatic now. Oh, that will change in a minute. So this week we'll be talking about Jake Brinkman. So Jake actually trains at Trowbridge. So I doubt you will have met Jake in your time in Bath, but don't worry, you can still have opinions. It's fine. So first question was, what time do you usually train? And he has said 5 p.m. That's a reasonable time, 5 p.m. He's not getting up insanely early to go and work out, which we've already said is crazy. I'm sure we've actually trained together, because if I record the podcast in Trowbridge, back in the day when I used to actually talk to people face to face, those were the days. I'd usually do it before the classes.
The good old days.
Good old days, yeah.
Things we will never see again. Other people.
Get used to looking at people through screens. It's the future. But I've trained a couple of times at the 5 p.m. class at Trowbridge, and I'm pretty sure Jake has been there, if not both times, at least one of the times. And in fact, rolling on now to his favorite movement in CrossFit, which, yeah, I suppose it's funny. You say favorite movement in CrossFit. It's a movement you can do in other gyms as well, but we do it at CrossFit as well. So
is it one where you get a look if you do it in another gym?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. So his favorite movement, well, he's put a little dash here, because it's back / front squats. So
separate movements, but
any kind of squat, I guess, is what he's saying. He likes squatting.
He's not written overhead squat on there, though, has he?
He's not written overhead squat. That is true. Jake, let me know, what's your opinion on overhead squats? But I'm pretty sure the time I did the 5 p.m. class, we were doing our 1 rep max back squats as well. So if you like the movement, that was a good class, and I PR'd my back squat, so I can't complain. His other favorite movement is rowing. So I like rowing. Unfortunately, I'm short, so rowing doesn't like me. But I much prefer it to the bike or ski erg or anything else. So
yep. Now, I'm a fan of the rowing machine.
What?
I'm a fan of the rowing machine. I'm not that good at it, but I remember when we did that marathon rowing 10,000 burpees, not 10,000. That would be too many. It'd still be going on now.
Yeah. Well, let's not talk about burpees.
Sure, you're not enjoying them anymore.
No, I didn't enjoy them from day one, but I'm on day 18 at the moment. His most hated movement in CrossFit, I applaud him for this answer. I almost feel like answering it this way means he's a regular listener to the CrossFit Bath podcast, because he's put that his most hated movement is, any guesses?
Snatch.
No.
Wall balls. Snatch. Wall balls.
Wall balls are my most hated movement in CrossFit. So well done.
It's a height thing, isn't it?
It's a multiple thing. There's a few reasons why I hate it, but I won't get into it now. But yes, well done,
Future
Jake. Future episode, yeah. I mean, I've said it multiple times.
Just by yourself, no interviewing people. Just rant on why you hate wall balls for an hour.
When someone says a 3-hour long episode, they'll know it's the wall ball special. So how did he find out about CrossFit, and how long has he been doing it? So he says Chrissy, a colleague from work, has been doing CrossFit for a while, and they chat about it, and eventually just made the leap. So you see, annoying your work colleagues talking about CrossFit does work in the end. You break them down eventually, and they will just
I have
start doing
buttons
it.
placed on me in a previous place, but that's fine. You're
They're
not allowed
probably
to
all,
mention this. Oh, right, well, fine, okay. I'll go sit by myself for the day.
they're probably all members now. They've probably all joined CrossFit Bath since you left.
Finder's fee.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So,
Ollie, you hit me up. Put a check in the post.
yeah. I always like to ask them for a fun fact. Now, here's put a pretty good fun fact on here. It's about himself. So it can be a fun fact about anything, or it can be about yourself. His fun fact is that I think you'll appreciate this. He once won a jar of sweets for guessing how many were in the jar.
I mean, I need more detail. One, what was in the jar other than sweets? Like, are we talking sort of the classic refreshers, Parma Violet, sherbet dip dabs here? Or are we talking sort of just, gummy bears?
What's more difficult? Do you reckon it's more difficult to have a variety of different sweets, so they're all different sizes,
I think,
or all the same sweet that you can somehow
the other
mathematically
variable
calculate
is
it?
how big's the jar? Because if it's quite a small jar and they're
2
quite
sweets.
big sweets, then I'm going to get that. I'm going to figure it out, even me. But if it's a small jar and they're like a load of gummy bears, I can't look at a packet of Haribo and tell you how many's in there.
And how many mirrors have they put inside the jar to reflect sweets to make it look like there's more sweets than there actually are? That's the
Well,
other.
if you put mirrors all the way around the inside of the jar, you wouldn't be able to see inside to spot the sweets, would you?
Well, I don't know. I'm not in charge of the sweet competition. Okay. The reason I also
You have not done your research on this.
Oh, he did finish it up with "Not all heroes wear capes," which I quite liked as well. But
Maybe the sweets were Cadbury's Heroes.
maybe they were. The clue was in the question. What
Oh,
I do find interesting about this is the number of competitions I've entered on Instagram over the 2-3 weeks I've been in lockdown. With
those win gym competitions where you never see who wins them.
Exactly. So, seeing that someone does win occasionally something at least gives me the confidence to keep tagging and annoying the same 3 people in every post.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's a little bit different when, the jar of sweets is in front of you and you're making the guess versus here's a picture of somebody's gym somewhere in the world that promising to give you that kit. But you keep going, it'll look nice in your house.
Yeah, there's no space, but
Make it.
there's a couple that I've seen that have the assault bikes as well. So the day that you see me selling on eBay an assault bike,
Jason won. This
I've won.
is the thing. Free to anybody who will come and collect at a safe distance.
Yeah, I'll leave it at least 2 meters away from my door so you can pick it up.
I've socially distanced myself from this assault bike by always being at least 2 meters away from it.
I mean, the way I look at it is there are a few positives in the situation we're living in at the moment, but 2 of the positives are I don't have an assault bike or wall ball at my house. So that is some of the. I'm looking at the silver lining. Even if you did,
there's no one to make you go on them.
That's true. Well, I don't know. That'll be the challenge for next month. We'll do 100 calories a day on the assault bike or something like that. Rob, don't get any ideas.
Just said it, so
I don't have an assault bike. Right. Yeah. And if anybody wants, you can follow Jake on Instagram for meal prep spam and other stuff occasionally at jbrinkman96. And we'll put some links somewhere in the show notes and the description in the YouTube video. Wonderful. Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming on. It's been nice catching up with you, and been really interesting to talk about another side that maybe we never think about with regards to CrossFit. So that's been really interesting. If anybody wants to follow your Instagram, do you want them to do that? There's lots of pictures of you running.
There's running, there's food, there's the dog, there's not really much interesting, to be honest, but if you want to, you can do. You'll have to tell them the handle because I don't know what it is. I think it's just my name. Let me find out.
It will be in the description anyway, but it is just your name. It's just
why make it complicated?
It's just Dan Tinkler. There you go. Very easy to find. Brilliant. Okay, so thank you everyone for listening. Thank you again, Dan, for being on here. And if anybody has come particularly for this episode and stayed on until this point because they read the description somewhere and were really interested to see what we had to say about dyspraxia. That's really great. And maybe, share this around if you do know people that have that or other, learning challenges that they, maybe put them off doing something like CrossFit, because I think that's it's a really interesting opportunity to try and get people to try something new that maybe will benefit them both, physical health, but also perhaps in other areas of their life as well. So until next week, I'll say goodbye to everyone, and thank you for listening.